What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Hey, what is going on, guys? It's Ryan Heath. Week 18 is over, but here at Fantasy Points, we have heard all your requests. When are we going to get some strategy content for these playoff best ball contests? Well, that's exactly what we're doing here tonight, and we have the exact right guest here. I'm very excited to pick his brain. He's one of my favorite writers in the space, my co-host on Dynasty Points, and the guy who has undoubtedly written the most words about playoff best ball of anyone in the industry this year. I am joined by Jakob Sanderson. Jakob, how's it going, man?
Man, I'm pumped. This is fun. I love the playoff contests. They are probably my favorite form of fantasy football, to be honest, because my first introduction to fantasy sports, as is many Canadians, is playoff hockey pools, which I think I started joining my dad's at like 6 years old, which is probably like a call the number type of statement. But the fun part of it is you're always navigating this combination of how much do I want to value the highest scoring players? How much do I want to value the teams that I think are actually going to go all of the way? And that's especially true with this contest, the way it's structured, where unlike the playoff hockey pools of yore, it is not cumulative scoring. You're advancing one round. And so the big thing with this contest is you have to create a live Super Bowl lineup. How are you going to get there? And it sets up a lot of very interesting decision points. And honestly, a lot of very, very bad rosters drafted by other people in your rooms, which is one of the reasons why I think people should be in on these contests, because whether or not you're able to realize that edge in a given year, I just have to imagine that the edge is immense based on how many completely dead entries you see in these contests.
Yeah, I will say that pretty much every like very sharp sports betting person I know or very sharp DFS person is like, yeah, I'm spending all of my time just grinding these playoff best ball contests for these 2 weeks because, yeah, the edge is definitely pretty insane. It's very unintuitive. It's kind of, you're trying to do very different things than you would be doing in a normal best ball contest or in even like a weekly battle royale contest. So why don't we get into that a little bit, Jakob? Yeah. When you go into a draft, when you load up a draft, what is your goal? What are you trying to build at the end of the day? What are you thinking about stacking? Should we be stacking? What's kind of the basic lay of the land here?
All right. So for anyone who has not ever done a playoff basketball contest before, doesn't know what we're talking about, the way these work, first of all, is you are in a 6-person lobby against 5 other drafters. You draft 10 players each. In the Mitten 3, it's the top 1, but in the contest we'll be drafting today, it's the top 2 out of 6 advance in round 1, and then you would go into different separate pools for round 2, round 3, and eventually for the Super Bowl. So you have to advance each week. And ultimately, the number 1 rule of playoff basketball is you score. Your best ball team is your top quarterback, running back, quarterback, running back, and then 2 wide receivers / tight ends. They treat tight ends as wide receivers in this, and then 1 flex. So 1-1-2-1. You need to have 5 players in the Super Bowl participating on the teams that are in the Super Bowl to be able to form a lineup. That's the number 1 thing. So anytime you're entering one of these contests, no matter what, you need to make sure that you've drafted a team that conceivably can field 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receiver tight ends, and 1 flex in the Super Bowl. The paths to get there are numerous, and we'll talk about that. But that is the number 1 thing, is you need to make sure that you are setting yourself up to be able to make at least 1, if not multiple, potential Super Bowl lineups.
Yeah, I find that when I'm drafting, I'm thinking much more about, is this a combination that works in the Super Bowl? Can I put all the pieces together and feel the full lineup? I'm thinking about that way more than I am, do I like this player? Or at least the player takes are very secondary to, does this team work in a logical way to where all these guys will be playing in, that I can feel the full lineup in round 1, in round 2, if my teams win, and then all the way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the player takes are, I would say, are almost borderline irrelevant. Like, there can be a couple of spots where, for instance, Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy go right next to each other. And so if you find yourself drafting a lot of Chiefs and you have a particular lean between you really like Kelsey more, you like Worthy more, that would be a spot where you might have a certain player take. But for the most part, they're really not top of mind. What should be top of mind in terms of the micro versus macro aspect, like the macro aspect is this stacking, right? How many combinations of teams can you get? How many total players between those combinations can you get that are live at the Super Bowl? And then to the extent that there are micro takes here, which is kind of part of the fun, is it's more actually of like a real football contest than it is a fantasy football contest, because it's more about picking teams. To the extent that I have micro takes in this contest, it's not I like Khalil Shakir more than Dalton Kincaid. It's I like the Ravens more than the Bills, or it's I like the Vikings more than the Rams. Like those are more of the decisions that you actually have to make. And you're more so going to be overweight or underweight teams than you are going to be overweight or underweight players.
Yeah, 100%. I think just kind of where we should start is how many different teams are you generally wanting to draft players from? And I guess within that, how many players at each position do you normally find yourself selecting? Now, this is going to vary probably based on which teams they are, if there's buys in your build or what, but give us some of your thoughts on that, on how you're generally trying to approach a build.
It's going to vary a ton. So yeah, you mentioned it right away, which is that the bye weeks have a massive factor in this, where because you have to advance out of round one, like if you pick a team entirely of Chiefs and Lions, that team is completely dead. You're not going to score any points in round one. It doesn't matter if they get into the Super Bowl. So, if you're building Chiefs and Lions, the maximum amount of Chiefs and Lions you should have is 5, basically, because it's the inverse of that rule where you need 5 live in the Super Bowl. Well, you also probably need 5 live in round one if you want to advance to ever see the Super Bowl. So, whereas like I did one team today where I started taking the Vikings and the Ravens, and I just kept getting Vikings and Ravens, and it ended up being that I took all 10 of my players on that team were Vikings and Ravens. That's not very common, but I have no objection to doing that. I would say the most common builds, probably, if you like take buys out of the equation for a second, or at least take double buys out of the equation for a second, for me would either be like a 4-2-2-2. So if I take like 4 of one team and then I give myself 3 outs of getting those extra 2 players from the other conference, or what would be probably more common is like, I'll say a 4-3-3, but it could be a 3-4-3 or a 5-2-3, but basically one dominant team that I'm relying on getting to the Super Bowl and then 2 potential matchups. That's probably the most common thing that I do. And then sometimes you get like that crazy where you only take 2 teams. If you start mixing buys into the mix, that's where I'm probably looking at doing 2 teams of both conferences almost always. And I'm probably looking to do like, 5 between the Chiefs and the Lions. And then I'm probably looking at some of those teams that are really less valued for their Super Bowl odds that have some players that I can really rely on in week 1. And so I'm maybe looking to mix in 1 or 2 members of the Chargers, 1 or 2 members of the Buccaneers, that kind of stuff there with those specific teams. But it really does depend on the feel for the room. You also want to take into account the potential matchups and brackets, right? You want to, as much as you can, not just have 5 live in the Super Bowl, but you want to leave yourself with opportunities to get potentially up to 10 live in the conference championship, or at least 8 or 9 live in the conference championship. So, if you take an Eagle early on, like the Packers are off the board for you. That shouldn't be something that you consider really at that point. And you probably want to even avoid matchups that seem particularly likely to happen in round 1. Like if you can stack, say say you already have a lot of Eagles, the best team to take if you're going to looking for a late NFC team would be the Bucs, because the Bucs and the Eagles can't play each other until round 3. So you can feel free rooting for those teams for the first 2 rounds, and then potentially,
Commanders, right?
I meant that the opposite way. I meant that completely the inverse. The worst of those other teams to take, other than the Packers, the next worst team would be the Bucs, because they will have to play each other in round 2. It's similar to like the Bills and the Ravens, right? So I would love doing Chiefs and Ravens or Chiefs and Bills. I wouldn't want to do Bills and Ravens to the extent that I can help it, because then you're guaranteed losing guys in round 2 rather than potentially getting everybody to round 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Just on that, I believe this is the case. The 2 and the 6 seed can never face each other until the conference championship. So I believe that's correct because there will always be.
Is correct. Yeah.
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 So Eagles Commanders is
Yes.
super easy. That's something I've been doing a lot.
Yeah.
In the AFC, it's all of the non-top 4 team, or sorry, I guess the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Chargers, to me, all have relatively reasonable Super Bowl odds or odds to advance in the playoffs. The rest of those teams, I found myself not wanting to make bets on generally. This is more of, I guess, a macro team take. I just don't see the Steelers or the Texans making big runs. I will take them as part of, if I, for example, am doing a double buy build and I really need to increase my round 1 projection. Sure, I'll like throw George Pickens on a team or something if I just need to make something work for 1 week and try to advance it.
Right.
But I find myself drafting the Steelers and the Texans probably the least of any team in the contest. I don't know if you have specific teams that you're gravitating away.
I dabble in the Texans, which ironically, like 2 weeks ago, I thought the Texans were the worst clicks on the entire board. Their situation is not different at all, except that I think just a lot of people said that they were the worst picks on the board. So now they go where I think they should go.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know what the spread is in that game. I have to think it's close to a pick 'em because they're at home to the Chargers. Are they 1 or 2 point underdogs? I can't imagine that's outside of a field goal.
I believe it was 3.5 point favorites that the Chargers opened as.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, generally seems to be down.
Let's see here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's already down to +3. But yeah, so that game, like if you just look at Vegas odds, that game and the Commanders Bucks game and the Vikings Rams game are, according to Vegas, the 3 games that are a field goal or less. So I dabble in the Texans. I think that they could beat the Chargers. I think they're completely dead in round 2 against the Chiefs, even if they do squeak out the Chargers. And I definitely prefer the Chargers to win that game. So I'm not that into the Texans. I guess I just think I think they're probably like 40%-ish to win in round 1. And any production they get is going to 2 players. So I don't totally hate dabbling with a Mixon or a Nico Collins, but I agree with you. I don't really take any of the Steelers. I actually have kind of a slight bag of Steelers because it looked like they were going to draw the Texans in round 1 until the last couple of weeks. So I was actually drafting the Steelers a lot. I've completely backed off that. I'm definitely not drafting any of the Broncos. And then on the NFC side, I think all of the games are quite a bit more interesting. So I think all of those teams are potentially live to really beat each other because I also don't really believe in any of the NFC teams to be as good as the top 3 teams in the AFC. So I don't think there's any horrible teams in that field and there's no dominant team in that field.
Yeah, I totally agreed. Yeah, I think we see it fairly similarly there. I guess just one more thing before we jump into some drafts. You have written about kind of this little stacking shortcut that I find very useful to just keep in mind. And it's to make sure that you have live combinations in the Super Bowl. You are advocating always, if possible, stacking your quarterback with your running back.
Right.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit and why it's so important?
Yeah. So in this format, and it's funny because I've seen people use this to justify like why quarterbacks and running backs should go higher in regular best ball, and maybe they should, but it's completely irrelevant in my opinion, just because it's a completely different format. Like it's kind of a puzzle, and quarterback is very binary. You either have the quarterback or you don't have the quarterback. If you do not have one of the quarterbacks of your potential Super Bowl matchup, then you're not going to win. So I'll use an example. One of the most common pairings that I see that is stone dead is teams will take Henry and Barkley in the first 2 rounds. Lamar and Hurts are always going in round 1 in pretty much every draft. So you're never getting one of them coming back to you in round 3. The best possible outcome now for that team is you now have to pick a 3rd team that you're going to start stacking. And that team, so say you decide to go after the Vikings from that point on. Well, you can get Darnold, and you can get Darnold and probably a couple of Vikings, and you can have him there with Henry. But now Saquon Barkley, who was your 1st round pick, cannot be in your lineup. And now you have Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry instead of Derrick Henry and Justin Jefferson. So now you have to do a Vikings-Ravens Super Bowl without Justin Jefferson when other people can just have Justin Jefferson. And it's not impossible, but you've shot yourself massively in the foot. So running back is not quite as binary as quarterback. But on some teams, it's pretty darn close. Like if you have, we'll use that same example. If it's the Ravens and Eagles Super Bowl, and you show up to a party in which a lot of teams have Barkley and a lot of teams have Henry, and you show up with Justice Hill or Kenny Gainwell, I don't love your odds. So, like the odds that one of those guys, like if you just play out the 2v2 of AJ Brown and Justice Hill versus Derrick Henry and whatever other pass catcher, you would have instead, say a Dallas Goedert or an Isaiah Likely or whatever. Like, I think that the side of the pass catchers or the side of the lesser pass catchers with the workhorse running back is going to win that battle way more often because there are so many other pass catchers and many teams are going to have more than the required 5. Many teams are going to be entering, unless it's like Chiefs Lions. But if it is Eagles Ravens, teams are going to show up with like 8 Eagles and Ravens into the Super Bowl, 9 Eagles and Ravens into the Super Bowl. So it's not an exact 2v2 even. It's just I'm going to have Bateman and Aguilar and Likely and Smith and Goddard, and I just have to pick the best 2 of those, versus another team that needs to hit on the top receivers and then needs to have a backup running back. So, yeah, basically the easiest way to do it is to have the same running back and quarterback, and then you're taken care of. Obviously, some teams you can't do that. Like if you have Lamar Jackson, you're probably not getting Derrick Henry to come back to you. So now you have to think, any NFC teams that I'm playing to get to the Super Bowl, I want to have that NFC running back taken care of. So that could mean, Aaron Jones and Bucky Irving, or that could mean whatever. But like if the only NFC running back that you have on your team next to Lamar Jackson is Aaron Jones, then your only actual avenue is a Vikings-Ravens Super Bowl. That doesn't mean you can't draft any other players to help get you through the early rounds, but you are playing under a Vikings-Ravens Super Bowl perspective at that point. So I think that's really important. You need to make sure you have their quarterback and your running back.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. So we're going to hop into a draft here. While we're getting in, so we are going to be playing the Little Gauntlet 2. Time-gated contest just came out this morning or last night, I believe. It was filling pretty quick. But yeah, 10 entry max. Nice little contest here. It is advanced 2 out of the first round. And while we load up here, I guess this is a good time to ask Jacob. In Battle Royale, me and Jake always talk about there are certain weeks where you should know like exactly what your stack is going to be before you even load up the draft room. There are some weeks where the ADP just works out that way to where you're going to be at an advantage if you just know what you're doing, because reaching is better and easier in Battle Royale and lots of other reasons.
Right.
When you're loading up a draft room, what are you thinking? When are you deciding what your primary stack is going to be? How does that kind of process look for you?
Yeah, so based on where you are in the draft board, your options become fairly limited. So where we are at the 1-2 turn, the reasonable options to help you get a quarterback and a running back that you're going to like in the Super Bowl together wind up amounting to, probably it's going to either be Derrick Henry plus Justin Jefferson, and then you play for Sam Darnold later, or it's going to be Patrick Mahomes plus Saquon Barkley or Jahmyr Gibbs. Those are probably the 2 most likely options. Or you go Derrick Henry plus Jared Goff, and then you play for the Lions later. But unless something crazy happens, those are most likely the 3, as you're either playing for Ravens Vikings out the chute, Ravens Lions, or you're playing for Chiefs and Eagles. You could do Chiefs Vikings, but it's a little sketchy with Aaron Jones. Naturally, obviously, you can also play the Chiefs running backs. I'm pretty sketched about the Chiefs running back. Okay, so Barkley goes there. So to me, most of the time that I'm in this spot, I go Derrick Henry and I go Justin Jefferson. Certainly not the only viable option. You could do Mahomes and Amon-Ra and then have to try to rely on getting like David Montgomery and all those guys. But that's usually where I go Henry Jefferson here.
Okay. Yeah, we can start out with Henry Jefferson here. Keep it simple. Since you bring him up, There are a couple
Henry
players
too.
like this, I guess, that are kind of, it's even harder to advance them theoretically. I think David Montgomery's probably going to play in the Lions' first playoff game. That's what the chatter has kind of been. It sounds like he is feeling better and making good progress. Zay Flowers is another one who is definitely live to miss this weekend's game, I would say. Are you kind of pushing these guys down your board? Are you interested in drafting them as more unique pieces if you can advance them to the Super Bowl? What are you kind of thinking with those guys? Because I have seen Zay Flowers today falling a lot. Like I've been able to get him onto the 5-6 turn before, which is a little surprising at a 2080p. But that seems to be the direction people are heading with it.
I think David Montgomery is an incredible value. Like for people that were playing the way too early wild card, he used to be a top of the second round pick. And there's a pretty good chance that he's just going to play and have a full role in round 2. So you're getting, I think, a pretty crazy value out of David Montgomery. The Flowers one I'm a little bit sketchier about because the sample is so small that, like, yes, over a 17 game sample, Zay Flowers is a pretty good bet to be the highest scoring Ravens pass catcher. But like in a 2-game sample, 3-game sample, whatever it is that he plays, is he that much more likely to outscore Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews? Like, I don't know that he's that. So I don't draft him. I draft Andrews ahead of him every time, and I'm drafting Bateman ahead of him right now as well. He's definitely not a full avoid, but I've been fading him a little bit more. It also kind of depends on who you pair him with. So like we're doing Vikings Ravens right now. I'm a lot more interested in drafting him on Vikings Ravens because we're not going to have to worry about buys. If we had taken Jared Goff instead of Justin Jefferson and we were doing Ravens Lions, now I'm much more sketched about Zay Flowers because you're potentially adding another buy basically. This would be a spot. So Mark Andrews goes at 16. And is that to the Lamar team? I don't even think that's to the Lamar team, which is pretty annoying because now all of a sudden we have double Ravens competition. That sucks. Okay, so let's do Jones here for sure.
Yep.
I think.
I think Aaron Jones is a clear pick here.
Yeah, and then the second pick becomes fairly tough because in this case I would almost be pushed to take Bateman because we have 2 other Ravens teams to compete with. Like I think there's a very limited chance that we're getting another top Raven back to us. Obviously normally I would pick Addison here, but
yeah, no, that makes sense because if you don't want to end up in a situation where it's literally you're rolling out Derrick Henry plus what other Ravens can you draft late? Not a whole lot. They're actually like Isaiah Likely.
I don't think there's anyone that has more Isaiah Likely exposure in this tournament than me. Like, I draft Isaiah Likely constantly. But yeah, you want one of the other core guys. This is rare. So like this is the thing with playoff best ball is that it's a great thing to enter because people don't know what they're doing, but you don't want the people who don't know what they're doing in your rooms.
Yeah.
So like we get in this spot here with like Babyface. Babyface is not going to be the winner of this tournament because he has 2 Detroit Lions, he has 2 Baltimore Ravens, he does not have Jared Goff, and he does not have Lamar Jackson. So he has donated his $10 to the cause, but while doing so has made both our life and the Lamar Jackson drafters' life far more aggravating. So what he's really done is he's just handed out a lot of EV to the other 3 drafters by lighting himself on fire and then catching us and the Lamar drafter in the flames. So that's just kind of the way it rolls sometimes. It's definitely a thing where like you want to be very much paying attention to the rest of the room because you can make some level of prediction, but you can't perfectly rely on that on rational drafting either, because sometimes people do just be clicking shit. Like I often get in the spot if I'm in the 5 hole where if all the other 4 teams already have quarterbacks, I'll try to push Goff into the 3rd. And sometimes that works, but sometimes the other 4 teams, even though they already have a quarterback that doesn't have a bye week, they just go, yeah, I'll just take Jared Goff, and for no particular reason. And then you don't have, then you're dead. So it's like,
Yeah, you have to be okay, I think, with sometimes you will draft dead teams because of what other people do. Unfortunately, it's
all right.
Similar tilt in Battle Royale.
Clearly Darnold's one of the picks here. And then really the question is like, do we want to already start reaching on Hockenson, or do we want to start building up another team? And we could build up another team on either side of the bracket here. So we could do a Mike Evans. We could also do, is Lad McConkey? Oh, he just went.
Oh, so, we got Buccaneers available. I'll let us auto draft Evans here. Bucks are here. I think we take Commanders are here.
Oh, we're not set up to auto draft Evans right now. We're auto drafting TJ Hockenson if you don't do anything.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant Darnold for the last pick, but yeah. So yeah, we can go Bucks if you're cool with that. And
I'm totally good with that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
And then Baker never even gets drafted in this thing, so he's probably a decent 10th round pick. And then you have the 2 outs. That's another thing we didn't talk about early. Anytime I take one of the top quarterbacks, so basically if I take Hurts, Jackson, or Lamar, I'm never drafting a second quarterback. If you draft Goff or Mahomes, obviously you have to draft a second quarterback. It does not necessarily have to be a quarterback you're playing beyond 1 week. With the Darnold teams, it kind of depends on the flow of the draft, but you're not spending that much on quarterback that I don't mind kind of inverting the build, where instead of it being like Lamar and I have 2 options at running back, it's like, well, Henry is going to get there. And then I have 2 options at quarterback would be sort of the corollary of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bucky gets sniped from us. That's fine, I think. I mean, it's not ideal if it's the Bucks that come out and then you are only rolling out 1 running back in the Super Bowl. It's always nice to roll out 2.
At least it's a good running back, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not ideal.
Let's see here. So yeah, we're probably looking at Hockenson next, I would say.
I think Hawk likely at this turn is pretty.
Add likely. And then we would have 1 more pick.
Definitely
if we
star my guy Justice Hill here. Definitely want to add him to the mix.
You're cool. So you like going Henry and Justice Hill on the same team? Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's a little unintuitive. But
there's just not that many skill players to pick from. So at a certain point, I don't get all that fussed about the correlation aspect of it. It's if we you're only going to have 6 or 7 guys probably in the Super Bowl for 5 spots. And it's totally possible that Justice Hill could make an optimal lineup with or make a winning lineup with 5 half PPR points. So I think it's not something to I'll definitely break ties to where if we didn't have Henry on this team, I would for sure be Hockenson and Hill. But since we do, I'm probably more likely to go Hockenson and likely. But if Hill comes back the next time, I think he's definitely the clip.
Yeah, no, completely agreed. I don't mind. We talk about these spots with running backs where it's you don't want to be the guy with only Justice Hill, certainly. Specifically on the Ravens, I don't think I mind being the guy with only Isaiah Likely, because on a weekly basis, so much of the projection or expected production out of the Ravens tight ends is going to be who catches the touchdowns. It's certainly been Andrews in recent weeks, but yeah, I really, as a kind of spike week, very cheap piece, Likely is pretty appealing to me in these drafts.
Well, and here's the thing too, so the Zay injury has really caused his ADP to drop. He's already dropped around and he's dropping more and more each day. But it hasn't really affected the ADPs that much of the beneficiaries. Andrews has gone up 1 or 2 spots. Bateman's gone up a couple of spots, but Likely's ADP is not really moved much at all. And I think he's arguably the biggest beneficiary because, if there's no Zay Flowers, there's only so it's going to be Bateman. It's going to be how many Highland Wallace routes are we expecting to see? And look, again, I'm probably leading all of underdog in percentage of rosters featuring Nelson Aguilar, but I don't think that many people are that into him. And that is another late thing too. So last year's Super Bowl is a perfect example of this. A lot of times people will scoff at some of these ridiculous players that you'll take. Like if I, for the teams that I like and the teams that are good that I'm playing to go to the Super Bowl, like I have no problem taking Aguilar, especially because that's a team with the Ravens. Like they don't have the bye. Oh my God.
Baker gets sniped from us, which is brutal.
Okay,
so
Hill with one.
We're taking Hill.
Now we're playing. It clearly has to be a Ravens-Bucks Super Bowl. So, Ravens-Vikings Super Bowl. So we can either do like this is a spot where for me, I would just take Aguilar, but if we would rather take like some other random AFC piece to help get to the AFC Championship, we don't have a second AFC team. I think that's also totally viable.
Are we anti-Jalen Naylor? Or
you could take Naylor. Yeah, I mean Naylor and Aguilar are the exact same thing, so I have no problem doing Naylor instead.
Yeah, that is fair. Yeah, I'll break the tie to Jalen Naylor, the Ask God. So that'll be our team. Not too bad of a team. I definitely don't mind this one. So just to review, we've got Sam Darnold, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, and Justice Hill with the double Ravens running backs. Justin Jefferson, Rashad Bateman, Mike Evans, TJ Hawkinson, Isaiah Likely, Jalen Naylor. Those teams where you take one guy and just get sniped on the rest in like your tertiary stack are pretty annoying, but it is what it is.
I mean, it's not the end of the world because like really, like if the Bucs win a couple of games and Mike Evans has a big game like that, he's probably in our lineup and helping us advance. And if we get our desired Super Bowl, we have 9 players in that Super Bowl. Like we have really the only players that we don't have that are massive features of that game are Addison and Andrews and Flowers. Like we have both starting running backs. Obviously in Lamar, but of the skill players, like we have both starting running backs. We have Jefferson. Babin. I wrote in the first piece that I did where, like I said, like every pick you make should be in service of either maximizing the combination of possible player or maximizing the amount of player combinations you can have to create 5 live in the Super Bowl or the amount of team combinations. So like that's obviously one where we end up on the player side of it, where if we hit on the right combination of teams, we have several different ways to create 5 because we have 9 dudes. Obviously that was not one where we have a lot of team flexibility. It needs to be a Vikings and Ravens Super Bowl, but those are the two kind of push pulls. I'm going to quickly pour myself a drink while you tee up this next draft. And we're back in the 6th spot.
Yeah, there we go. Look at that. I get just to kind of expand on what Jacob was saying. Personally, with a team like the Ravens, I am very much trying to build them as deeply as possible. Just because the Ravens are a team that are going to be highly projected in any game that they're playing. I would expect their advance rate to be generally very high. I think you mentioned some of this in your content too, Jacob, where the most likely round 2 for the Ravens is like a shootout against the Bills. So those two teams in particular, I would expect to have very high advance rates. So if you're building a team that if they make it to the Super Bowl, there's going to be a lot of other live teams, you really want to build that as deeply as you possibly can to give yourself in that Super Bowl matchup as many possible hits, right? Like, it can be a total it can be a Justice Hill, like taking 180 yards to the house and being optimal in being an optimal player and one of the best 5 players you can have in that Super Bowl. And fewer people having him hopefully is a big advantage to you if you're stacking up the team.
Like Juwan Jennings last year was in optimals, right? And he was that guy that people were stacking in the 10th round on their 49ers teams. Like you mentioned with the Ravens, like that, I think that's kind of, so the NFC teams, like it's the one where I'm more willing to play both. It's pretty tough. Like once you're committed to the Ravens, and this would go for really all the teams, it's like, who else am I going to pick? It's like, I don't really want to pick Bills because they're going to draw them in round 2. The Chiefs are going to have a bye in round 1. And if we're already playing the Ravens, then they're also not playing the Super Bowl. So it's like, do I want to take a bunch of Chiefs just for 2 potential rounds? Like that's not super fun. Okay. So this is one where we could do, Oh, Barkley Mahomes. Yeah. Let's do
Yeah,
that.
that's what I was about to click.
Yeah.
For a second there, I thought I was going to get a Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley for the first time in my life, Jacob. I really thought that was about to happen, but
I don't know how many times I've put this. I put this in each column that I've written, but like anytime, because it's rare and because the scoring is so high, anytime you can get any combination of either Lamar or Hurts with either Barkley or Henry, like no matter what your plan was going in or what you think about those teams, I think you just have to do it because you're just getting one of the two highest projected quarterbacks, one of the two highest projected running backs the entire way through the contest. And then when you get to the finals, most of the other teams that have stacked those two teams have worse combinations than you. Like they're either going to have Hurts, AJ Brown teams with running back issues, or they're going to have or Lamar, AJ Brown. Like there's not going to be that many of those combos. So that's like one where you just do it every time.
For sure.
And on the flip side,
go ahead. Yeah.
And on the flip side, because it's hard but not impossible, like I don't like taking those worst combos because if you are the team with the Hurts AJ Brown or the Lamar AJ Brown, like I just think those teams are such dogs to the running back plus quarterback versions of those Ravens Eagles stacks that like I don't even really bother. So to me, I'm going to have a very low percentage of Ravens Eagles teams, but every Ravens Eagles team I have, almost every one of them is going to be like very supercharged.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess I'd compare it for anyone that was drafting Battle Royale with us this past week. It would be kind of like if Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans both fell to you at the turn this past week. The 2 first-round picks, obviously high correlation guys that you both wanted to stack, was very hard to get, but because of how rare it was, yeah, you just had to instantly click it if it ever happened to you. So let's see. I should have been queuing up players here. So I think Kelsey is definitely, let's hope. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Kelsey.
Well, it would have been great if he did. I would have loved to draft Smith.
Yeah. I don't even know why I'm queuing Pacheco. Are you anti Pacheco in this contest? I kind of don't get why he goes.
I think he's a disgusting pick. Yeah. Like I think him and Hunt are like the same, and I don't even think that P. Ryan's that much worse. Like it's like a 3-way split. Like I'm just, for the most part, I'm just trying to play the running backs of the NFC team that I'm pairing the Chiefs with, and just trying not to really deal with the Chiefs running back situation all that much.
Do we want to go Goddard?
This would be one.
We get another Eagle, or what do you think?
So we could. I would be taking Aaron Jones or Kyron here. And I would just build in a second team instead of forcing these guys like 2 rounds above their ADP.
Okay. I'm totally cool with that. Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's something I need to improve on as a drafter is I get very wrapped into like, this is my stack and this is what I know I'm trying to achieve. And I think from Battle Royale, I'm just not as, I am primed to not care as much about ADP from BR because in that contest, all you want to do is get unique in like a 1-week sample. In this contest, I would say closing line value and ADP does matter significantly more, just because there are a handful of very highly projected pieces, and the favorite for any matchup is going to be whatever team has the most of those. So if you're foregoing, I would include Aaron Jones kind of in that. He's going to be fairly highly projected in any game he plays. If you're foregoing an Aaron Jones for a Dallas Goedert or a Hollywood Brown or whatever, then yeah, you're going to be worse than a version of that team with both, because it's possible to have a version of that team with both. There will be other ones in the tournament more than likely that you're going to be going up against. So yeah.
Well, and the way that I look at it too is like, especially with the Chiefs, you can only draft so many Chiefs. There really is more of a diminishing returns than we're talking about a team with a bye. So like you probably don't like, there are legitimate drawbacks to having 5 Chiefs. So to me, it's like we have Barkley, we have Jones. So like I don't desire to have more than 3 to 4 Chiefs on this team really, since they're going to be the bye team. So to me, it's like I don't need to force a Chief ahead of ADP. Like if we end up with just Mahomes and Kelsey and Hollywood, and then like Noah Gray really late. Like that's fine.
Sniped on Hollywood.
Unfortunately goes. That really
Yeah.
sucks. But we get Goddard. So that's I thought Goddard was gonna get sniped.
Yeah.
So Goddard to me for
So-
sure, because like that's the last
Yep.
useful Eagle.
Mhm.
And then it just falls off a cliff. And then I'd be Addison, I think. For me, because like
We don't
we're
want to
getting better
lock in
projected
another
players.
QB, or since we
I don't
would
really
need one
care
in
that
round
much
one.
about Darnold.
Okay.
I mean, we could. I care more about Addison than Darnold. I think if we're playing for the possibility, because we don't need Darnold. Like all we need is Mahomes to outscore Darnold in the Super Bowl. If Darnold came all the way back around, then I think sure. But like we kind of just need a quarterback in like it'd be a bonus if our quarterback was also a potential Super Bowl participant. Hunt going there is aggravating.
That actually.
But we have a guy on the exact
now.
same.
Now I wish we did have Darnold. Now that now that Hunt went, but yeah, that's pretty rough. I think.
I mean, it's fine though because we're gonna have a better projected running back in either matchup than the two Chiefs back. So I don't mind it that much.
In terms of like to just add like a quarterback at the end who are kind of your favorites, I found myself like just to cover like the buy from Mahomes, I find myself just clicking Jaden Daniels late,
right?
Honestly, even unstacked, because he's gonna be one of the top 3 projections in round 1. So and you can get him like the 8th round. So I found myself going that direction in a spot like this a lot, but.
That's how I feel. Like if there's a reason to click someone else. So like for instance, in this case, like if Darnold was to make it all the way back to us, we're pretty incentivized to click Sam Darnold. But if and Daniels goes anyways. But if you're not, then I'm fine with Daniels. I also just like I don't really want to spend that much, to be honest, on a quarterback who my goal is just to get me through one. I find myself clicking Baker a lot. I click Herbert a lot. Like if I'm just doing a one-off. But okay, so I think, let's see here. So this guy might take Hopkins, I suspect. But
well, we could get either Hawkinson or Darnold, which is decent. He timed out into Keon Coleman. So
the only pick here I really care about is Hopkins, because that's probably much our only third chief. I'm so greedy that I might even just take Hawkinson, but I think that Darnold is totally fine given where we're at.
Okay. Let's go Hopkins. What else is here at QB? Let me I'm tempted as well.
I mean, I think we can just do Darnold if you want, because it's going to well actually can you go to the board view?
So
who has Goff? Is he already covered?
Guy.
No, this guy, and so he's gonna take Stafford because he's already doing Ram stuff. I would push it with Hawkinson, but it's fine if you want to go Darnold.
Okay, we can go Hawk. Yeah, I mean, worst case, you just end up with like a Baker or
take
Herbert
whoever at the end.
Yeah.
Also,
that's probably better, honestly. Yeah.
Breaking news: new player has been added to the player pool because Ezekiel Elliott has signed with the Los Angeles Chargers.
Oh God. Oh, I hate. Do I hate that?
I don't think it's.
I don't know.
Relevant. I mean,
I don't think it matters. I don't know. Ezekiel Elliott just goes everywhere and makes me tilt no matter where he goes. Like I know for a fact I'm gonna be relying on a J.K. Dobbins score at some point in this tournament and losing my mind when he just vultures in at the goal line. Like that's lock it in. That's 100% happening.
I'm not.
Why else would you sign
Dobbins?
him?
Dobbins is the guy, and everyone else on that team they obviously hate. So I just think that's more of a reflection of how much they hate all the other running backs.
That is true.
Ravens signed Dalvin Cook this time last year, and then he got 2 carries. So I wouldn't.
Yeah, I had memory wiped that. I forgot that Dalvin Cook was a Raven for a brief moment. It looks like we might get Darnold here, which
I mean, because the thing is, like, realistically, if people are drafting efficiently, the only teams that should be drafting a second quarterback are the Mahomes team and the Goff team, and then maybe another team. So it's like, and this guy, and as it happens, Dunleavy does it to us. Okay, so I would probably go Herbert here, just because in theory you can get an extra. Well, I guess it doesn't matter because they would probably play the Chiefs anyways in round 2, right? So the
most
third
likely
NFC team is Dobbins still available? Just because then we can.
No, he's not. Yeah, neither of them have skill players available.
Are there any other quarterbacks that are interesting?
We're gonna auto into Jordan Love was whatever.
Yeah. All right. So then it's just whoever is a third running back that makes any sense for this team, basically, right? Do we want to Pirine this, or is there anyone that's worthwhile not taking Pirine?
Not Najee. There's like no running backs here though. We can Pirine. Let's go for the Samaje Pirine pick. I think that's the first time I've clicked Pirine in this contest, but that's on brand that we would do it with you on stream, Jacob.
I think of growth fucking players, and Pirine. If I get any teams to the Super Bowl, but if I do get any teams to the Super Bowl, and if the Chiefs or the Ravens are there, I will either be like the one person that's happy about a Samaje Pirine / Noah Gray touchdown, or that's happy about a Nelson Aguilar touchdown. It'll just be me. It'll be me.
Yep. So to review the team, we got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, Samaje Pirine, Travis Kelce, Dallas Goedert, Jordan Addison, DeAndre Hopkins, TJ Hawkinson. I like this team. This seems pretty good to me. A lot of different combinations that can work. These more like balanced 3-team builds are probably my favorite. Just because I find during the draft, I'm having to think less about, is this combination going to work? Because they pretty much all do if you are stacking guys in that manner.
Right.
So we can hop into another one. That I know there are a lot of questions in chat here, guys, and I do want to make sure we get to at least a few of them. Carlos Hernandez asking about putting out rankings. I don't know if you feel differently, Jacob. He's probably asking because me and Jake always do Battle Royale rankings every week.
Right.
I don't think rankings are that relevant in this contest. Yeah,
I think rankings are not relevant at all. I mean, I don't know if I should shill for other people's products here on the site, but like I know LegUp does a sidekick where it's smart, and so it adapts to what your team is and what the room is, and then it will give you recommendations. That is a helpful tool. Rankings, unfortunately, are just not a helpful tool because like if you need to, the whole key to this is like you need to remain dynamic. So like I can tell you what my preferences are in terms of teams and in terms of first rounds, but like I can't tell you whether like Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley is a better pick. Like that's just kind of not really the function of this. Also, I definitely want to get to these questions. I want to quickly add on your last point about the balanced team. So I think that the balanced team where you're going one dominant team and 2 potential Super Bowl combatants is just way better with the Chiefs than it is with the Ravens, in the sense that like if it's a Chiefs-Vikings Super Bowl, we're not getting the best combination because we took the Barkley pick instead of Justin Jefferson. But what saves that with the Chiefs is that Chiefs teams aren't going to have a high advance rate because a lot of those are going to lose in round 1 with the buys. So all right. So this to me, like this would be.
I'm always scared to click Hurts in the first because I feel like I just get sniped and I end up.
I don't like taking Hurts, but I'm totally fine doing it. Gibbs to me is like is it all right? Let's try it.
We can do it. Like I feel like Gibbs gives you the flexibility. I guess you're upset if Mahomes or Goff doesn't fall to you.
I think
I find myself more upset when I pick Hurts more often. Yeah.
So I think I'm scarred because when I first started doing these a lot, Goff's ADP was a lot higher, and so if you took Gibbs in that spot, it was just often that you were getting you're just basically ending up in a situation in which Gibbs was unplayable, because if you can't get Goff and you can't get Mahomes, then you're just functionally dead.
And this guy took a round 1 Amon-Ra, so I feel like
Well,
I feel like that might be about to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that we get maybe Mahomes. It's not that often that all 5 take quarterbacks in between you, but maybe we just did it. Which is why I almost never do the Gibbs round 1 thing. But we will see. I'm like pretty ideological where I actually just usually take Derrick Henry at 3, but I'm just making a big bet on the Ravens. So I usually just take Henry or Mahomes almost every time in round 1. Yeah, and then we're gonna get fucked right here.
Yeah, we are.
Sure.
So we're gonna have to
risk.
Yep.
So Gibbs is now we just basically have to treat it as though Gibbs is no longer on our team. Is essentially what we have to, or we have to bet all in on the Chargers. One of the two.
Let's do Chargers. Do we want to draft him now, or do we want to go like a Justin Jefferson?
I would. So we can go. So we go Jameson now would be the move.
Oh,
and then we take the quarter round 3.
And then okay. Yeah, Chargers are a good kind of bailout team like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We could.
So when
we could even do
ADP?
It's like still
30?
Decently low, 30. So,
okay, so add
pretty good odds we get him round 4. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go. So Laporta for sure at this pick, I think, right?
Yeah, I don't see any other.
Yeah, and what's Montgomery's ADP?
He's like 40-ish, I believe. So yeah, that was what I was just gonna suggest was maybe see if we can. That's true. Yeah, he that's kind of he's 34. Oh, okay.
All right, so let's do.
So this might be tricky.
Ideally, we go McConkey, then we go Montgomery.
Yeah, and you just hope that everyone else leaves the rest of the Chargers alone for you, I think is the play. Yeah. And I guess you'll learn the hard way on that sometimes. Gibbs has worked out okay for me round 1. It's usually Hurts that I feel like screws me because I feel like I never get Saquon. Mahomes generally goes first. Like you're much more likely to get a Goff falling than a Mahomes.
Yeah, the thing with Hurts is you're never actually dead because you can always just take James Cook.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true.
So like to me, like if you take Hurts, the prayer is Saquon or Henry. And then if you don't get either of those, then you can just take James Cook without an issue, or you can take AJ Brown and then play the Chiefs running backs. But I really hate doing that because I just think that the Hurts plus Chiefs RBs teams are so much worse than the Mahomes plus Barkley's teams that I just don't play it that way. So if I go Hurts in that spot, I always I'm hoping for Henry or Barkley, and then if I don't get Henry or Barkley, I just ignore AJ Brown. I go straight to James Cook, and then I take usually Smith. So yeah, I go McConkey here. I mean, at this point, like once you go, if you make the Gibbs bet, right? The dream with the Gibbs bet is like maybe Amon-Ra even comes back to you. If not, and then you can even push Goff because everyone behind you has quarterbacks. Like it's very high upside. Once it doesn't, really your only path is either like you have to play kind of you can play like if you want to play like the Packers, right? Then it's like, well, whatever. You can get all the best Packers and Chiefs. Like you can just take Josh Jacobs, you can take Travis Kelce, Worthy, you can play Jordan Love, and then just pretend like Gibbs doesn't exist, basically. Or if you want to retain Gibbs' utility, you have to go to one of those non-top 3 AFC teams, which Chargers I think are definitely the least bad option of that. So yeah, I think I'd be Monty here, right?
Yeah, and honestly I don't mind that. Like there are definitely versions of the Super Bowl where Gibbs and Monty are both optimal and Goff isn't.
Sure.
Like that's definitely possible. I don't think it's the thinnest bet ever. Yeah.
No, I don't mind that. And I mean they can also ping pong back and forth a little bit too. And we've got so that's 4 Lions. So that's 4 bye weeks. So I think we're done on the Lions. So basically now it's Chargers and then whatever it's going to get us to the promised land from there. So like we can take I mean we could run it all the way down if we want.
Just putting options.
I might not take all those late guys because we're only going to have 6 active players week 1. So like if you start getting into the Palmers and Disleys, you start making your life very difficult in a hurry. So this would be where I would start to look at like, can we get any of the Bucks? Like Josh Jacobs is still on the board right now. We don't have a running back in round 1 right now, so like that would be pretty interesting.
That would be, yeah. Just go. Well, I guess the only problem is that the Packers are a likely round 2 matchup with the Lions if
I don't think
they
that's that big of a problem.
advance. But yeah,
it's
yeah,
I guess a
right.
slight problem, but I don't think that's that big of a problem.
Yeah, because I mean, the other way to look at that is that if that happens to you, then you're still advancing a team regardless. Right?
But all we're constructing is like we're gonna have Herbert and Dobbins in this team, and then we already have our 4 Lions. So we're just constructing the final 3 players of our 6-player round 1 lineup, which is going to include Herbert, Dobbins, and McConkey. So at that point, I become pretty focused. Unless is Mike Evans still available too? Because we could do Bucky instead. Okay,
yeah,
so
we can go
that's better than
full
the
on
Packers.
Bucks. Yeah, because of that, because of what we just talked about. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So probably
So the Bucks are there. That's
Bucky
better than
first.
Jacobs. But if one of this guys goes Bucks, then I'd probably go Packers. No. So yeah, let's do Bucky.
Okay. Yeah. And then
that'd be great.
Yep. So Bucky will have Mayfield at some point, hopefully.
I mean, I really wouldn't do that. I think that'd be really bad, actually.
Oh, right, because we're kind of
because if you then
playing for a
we have
Lions
to go
Super
4
Bowl.
for 4. Well, no, not just like then if we go second quarterback with 4 Lions, then we have to go 4 for 4. We have no buffer on any of our skill players in round 1 anymore.
Okay. Sorry. There's a
lot.
There's a lot in
the
my
Lions
head
aren't
right now.
playing. The Lions aren't playing round 1, right?
Right.
So we have 6 for 5. But if you take 2 quarterbacks, then it's 2 for 1 and 4 for 4 instead of 6 for 5. Does that make sense?
Sure. Are we picking Herbert here? Or are we what are we doing? Sorry, Jacob.
Oh shit. No worries.
Too many things in my head.
Dobbins
went, so I'm scared if
Dobbins
we
went
pass on him. Yes.
Okay. Then Herbert.
That was why I put him up to
really
the top,
early.
I just didn't want the team to be dead. But
okay, that's fine. Cool.
So yeah, sorry. Talk me through what you're thinking here at this point.
Okay, so what I was going to say is
turnaround.
So like we can't use any of the lines around 1, so that's 4 dead spots. So we have 6 remaining spots, of which 5 need to count. But if you go Herbert and a second quarterback, then we have 2 quarterbacks for 1 spot, and then all of the other 4 are guaranteed to count in our round 1 lineup. Whereas if you don't take the second quarterback, then Herbert's our quarterback, and then we have 5 spots for the other 4. So we can survive one dud from one of the skill players.
I see. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So let's see. We got 3 more spots to fill here.
So at this point, it's really just like, to me, it's more just like who projects the best in round 1 that makes like any sense. So like,
There's like no running backs.
So I think we're a 1-4-5.
Okay.
Yeah, Hawkinson is fine. Yeah.
Take him here, you think, and then
I'm fine with Hawkinson. That works.
And we can. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Hawkinson, and then let's do. We have 2 picks left. I think the best.
Yes.
So maybe QJ and McMillan.
Okay. Oh, I completely forgot about McMillan.
Or we could do. I mean,
there goes QJ.
Okay, that's really annoying. Normally, no one's ever competing for your Chargers.
Yeah, it's very. And we took Ladd first too. Like, you think
right? I know.
You started dominance over that. Yeah.
Anytime you like plant your flag on Ladd, usually people are like, "All right, you're the Chargers guy in the room." So that's pretty ridiculous. Yeah, this is definitely an infuriating team, but it's I think it's a good exercise in live problem solving. So I just to like maintain any form of consistency on this team, I think one of the picks should be McMillan, and then the other pick should probably come from the AFC instead of opening up a fourth NFC team.
Agreed.
So
I don't hate Palmer or Disley. I don't think it's ideal, but
yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world. Who are the running backs? If we only have one running back, is there any?
Ty Johnson and Najee Harris.
Like, I don't hate Jalen Warren or Najee Harris. But I guess they're pretty dead to advance past round 1. So, Pickens.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, we just need Bucky.
I would do Pickens over Palmer and Disley, but if he goes, then probably just take Palmer or Disley.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. No, that was definitely felt were a lot of things to think through there all at once. Yeah. That's what happens when you take Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round and you reach on Jahmyr Gibbs. I guess that was a good live lesson to me to not do that. So
it could definitely work
for that teaching moment.
Just not work this time, but maybe it will work out if we get the Chargers line Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of okay. There goes Pickens. We can just take Josh Palmer.
Oh and God. All right.
Yeah, do you prefer Disley? Like, I don't know.
I have no idea. Probably Palmer. I feel like he could at least hit a long one. Disley's not hitting a long one.
Yep. Okay, so to review the team, Justin Herbert, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery got the double Lions running backs, Bucky Irving, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, Lad McConkey, TJ Hawkinson as an advance rate piece, Jalen McMillan as well, and Joshua Palmer. So yeah, kind of all in on the Chargers Lions Super Bowl, and then just like a smattering of other teams to hopefully get us there. Definitely my least favorite team we drafted.
For sure.
It's definitely all my fault. But it happens sometimes. That's the way it breaks occasionally. Do you want to do one more, Jacob?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do one more.
All right. One more. We can't end on that note exactly.
Maybe did you already hit enter? I was gonna say we could answer the questions first, but maybe as we wait for it to start.
Go ahead while we wait
more in the chat. Let's take a look. Okay. Jason says in BBM, Sharp is expected to lose money. If you fired 150 playoff teams, you expect to be profitable. No, just based on how much of the money is concentrated up top. I just don't think it's really reasonable to ever expect to have an over 50% chance of being profitable. That being said, I do think that there is an edge that exists if you're a Sharp player. I can't tell you when that's going to manifest. Shout out Neil Orfield is at the 6-7 spot, so we can count on the player and least likely to snipe us drafting rationally. So that's good. Let's see.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I would never. This is, even if we think we have a big edge here and there's a lot of dead teams and a lot of EV to be had, I would still. That's comparable to saying, yeah, I expect I'll be profitable on this one specific DFS slate. I don't think you should ever have that expectation just with how the payouts are structured. 101, are you in on Josh Allen, Jacob, or no?
I mean, like, I'll just be honest, like, I'm being ideological, so I'm taking Lamar Jackson over Josh Allen every single time, but you don't have to share that ideology. I have no problem with building a Bills team with you if you want.
Honestly, every Bills team I build kind of ends up very boring because I just go like pretty deep on the Bills because they have a lot of secondary and tertiary options that are just really easy to grab, and I want like a robust Super Bowl team with the Bills. So instead of but regardless, instead of
it is. Dalton Kincaid plays currently on one of the best teams in the NFL. His ADP in playoff best ball is rapidly approaching his ADP in regular season best ball. He is moving towards the 49th, 50th pick. I believe it's getting pretty close. Yeah, pick
40.9. Yeah.
So he's only about one round away from hitting his regular season best basketball ADP. This was a great question from Freeze. Does your draft strategy change at all for the mitten 3? Because that's a 1 out of 6 advance instead of 2 out of 6. Yes, absolutely. The biggest difference in that is I think if you're doing double buy, I don't think you necessarily have to take 5 Chiefs and Lions. I think that it is actually possible, if not even probable, that it will be so difficult to advance teams that have 5 Chiefs and Lions that you can probably take 4 and survive. I would also say anytime you do pick Chiefs and Lions, or if you pick 4 of either the Chiefs and Lions, I don't really care about anything else at that point in terms of like at that point, the bet you've made is that they're going to make the Super Bowl. No one is going to be able to advance them there. So just by virtue of me getting there, I will now be competing against a very small group of people to win it all. I'm not as concerned about like, don't draft more than 2 teams in each conference or like any of these other things. Like it's, if you're taking a lot of Chiefs or a lot of Lions in the mitten 3 where it's 1 out of 6, at a certain point, you're just playing battle royale probably from rounds like 6 through 10. And you're just trying to pick the best team outside of that.
Yeah, very much kind of the opposite of Bills or Ravens, like I was talking about for me.
Exactly.
With them, I'm like, yeah, I need as many of this team as I possibly can to feel like I have a good chance to be live in that Super Bowl matchup. So how do you like to approach Lamar from the 101? This is going to be kind of a new build for me.
So I always hope that Justin Jefferson comes back to me, first of all. And usually if you take him at the 101, there's a better chance because this guy probably took Allen. So I bet he takes Cook, and he does. So I go Jefferson and Jones here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. You'd make a kind of full claim to the Vikings. Yeah, you're going to get you'll get at least one relevant Ravens piece coming back to you.
If Jefferson did
at
not
least
make
one
it
of it,
back,
at least Flowers or Bateman, I'd expect.
If Jefferson did not make it back, then I probably would have advocated for Jameson Williams and either Mark Andrews, and you just commit to Ravens Lions and play for Montgomery. Or I would potentially even go Jameson Williams and Aaron Jones and then split the potential opponents between the Vikings and the Lions. But those would be the 2. That would have been the backup plans for me.
Makes sense. There was a question in the chat that I just saw pop up that I thought was interesting and worth talking about. What do you do if you miss out on the top 5 QBs? So I guess we kind of just showed like what you hope doesn't happen when you miss out on the top 5 QBs. But yeah, in your ideal scenario, what would we do there?
This says a lot about my portfolio, but like I consider it a top 6 quarterbacks. So like I think that the Vikings are among that tier of teams. I understand that obviously Sam Darnold doesn't score as many points as some of those quarterbacks, but like, and obviously last night wasn't great for this case, but like I think the Vikings are very good. They went 14-3. I think that they are roughly a similar bet, notwithstanding last night, to the Lions and Eagles. So I think that Darnold is very mispriced in the sense that he's the 6th, but all the guys that pick the other 5 all of a sudden become not interested in quarterback. So I'm usually going Darnold. If you end up in a spot where you've committed to an NFC team, like we just did, and so Darnold now is not a viable backup scenario, that's where, I think the Chargers are probably your next best bet with Herbert. That's why I tend to pick an AFC team in the first round more often than not. Okay, I would be Addison for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, all of Bateman?
Yeah, I know,
Flowers
right?
and Andrews all went.
Yep.
That is brutal. Fuck, that sucks big time.
It's these rooms, man. Did Neil Orfield do that? Is this his fault? Hang on.
Yeah.
He took Flowers, but he had Henry, I believe. So
maybe
everyone else in this room. What are we doing?
Okay. So at this point, there's no point in taking a Raven, like this far
Yeah.
ahead of ADP. We just have to hope that we'll get them later. So we could either go Hawkinson or we could go not a Ram. I guess we could let's maybe take Bucky or Evans.
Evans is
Yeah,
gone,
that's
so
probably-
I'm gonna
Evans
let
is gone.
Hawkins. Yeah, I'm gonna let us draft
Oh
Hawkinson
my God.
there.
Who is
Yeah.
who is falling then to make all these guys go way ahead ADP? No one?
Jacobs, I guess.
Really
Not even
falling
that far. Yeah.
ADP. Yeah, weird. Guess we could have gone Jacobs too.
What does this
But
board look like? So we've got this guy's building Eagles Ravens, kind of
Okay.
in like
Yeah,
a really
he is.
suboptimal
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Who's the other
don't
Ravens
know
team?
what
This
this
guy
guy's
takes
doing.
Flowers. He takes
So
Flowers.
Yeah,
and
Neil
Henry.
takes Henry
That
Flowers.
makes sense.
Yeah,
So I'm curious what Neil is going for here. So like obviously, so this, I mean, I love Neil, and I'll probably ask him offline what his. Oh, I see what he did. Okay, so he's obviously playing for Goff to get back to 18. He misses on Goff, and then at this point he just sacrifices Amon-Ra to the cause. So he goes Evans, and now the plan
and he's
is
gonna
Bucks, Ravens.
So we
that
would have
makes
completely screwed him if we took Bucky there,
Yeah.
which would have
So
been
that's-
suboptimal
so
for
he
us,
did-
but would have been funny.
So he did basically what I had originally suggested last draft when we got Goff taken from us, which was like basically throw Jahmyr Gibbs overboard, and then play for like the Packers or the Bucks with an AFC team. He took that approach. So I think, and he was at a point too where he had already invested in 2 teams. So I think probably makes more sense for him to do it at that point.
Yep. So coming
So I
up here,
I think we're probably just, well, I think we've got to take one of these Ravens, even though the ADP is gross, just because.
yeah, I'm fine just reaching on
We're gonna need
likely,
ultimate-
assuming
we're gonna
he
need more
gets
Ravens.
to us. Yeah.
And we don't have a second.
We probably
either,
don't.
right?
Correct. Yeah. We only have Ravens, Vikings right now. We probably don't need Darnold. Yeah, probably no reason. to take Darnold.
Someone's beefing our Aaron
on our
Jones pick.
team.
I think so. Like this would be. I'm not going to say like Aaron Jones is a good or bad pick, but I think that the reasons Brett gives for why he's a bad pick are not very strong. So like he says, Aaron Jones when Josh Jacobs and Kyron are available much later. Yeah, I don't think Aaron Jones is very likely to outscore Josh Jacobs and Kyron Williams in round 1. I just think that the Vikings are substantially more likely to make the Super Bowl than the Rams or the Packers, which is really what matters. If you don't agree with that assessment, then Aaron Jones is a bad pick. But I don't think that the degree of his snap share is like, frankly, all that relevant.
Yeah, I think the Super Bowl odds agree with you too. I believe the Vikings are third in the NFC. Every team has had someone taken Jacob. I'm very annoyed by this.
All right. Okay, so
I'm fine going likely here, but we should figure out what we do with the second pick.
yeah, I know.
So Bucks kind of spoken for. Packers, only Jacobs has gone.
So there's no other NFC. Oh, we could take what about the Commanders?
McLaurin's gone, of course.
I don't know, that's fine. I don't mind that. We could do
You want to hit Brian
B-Rob
Robinson?
late. We could do B-Rob late maybe.
Ertz, I gotta click someone.
We do
in 10
B-Rob and
seconds,
Ertz.
so.
We can just do Hill if there's nothing that comes up better because we're gonna want Hill
Okay.
anyway.
That's fair. Yeah. All right, we'll click Hill, B-Rob, Ertz. I feel like I almost never see B-Rob and Ertz go, so that should be okay.
Is there any other? I guess the other way we could do it is like we could look at just an AFC team to get to the conference finals and help along the way. What's the AFC situation? So Chargers are, I assume, picked over. I mean, there's actually some pretty good Chiefs left.
Yeah, there's good Chiefs. Dobbins is still there. I think Neil is going to click Dobbins Herbert here, most likely, which was why I didn't click him. But yeah, there's some. Yeah, we could go Hollywood. We can go DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm pretty into these Chiefs picks. Yeah, because like we're not gonna have.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have a pretty good team for round one, even despite reaching on some guys. Like we still have the core of Jefferson, Jones, Jefferson, Addison. So I don't hate mixing in I wouldn't mind mixing. Oh, Hollywood goes. All right.
Yeah.
There goes that.
I think. Oh, never mind. I was gonna say I don't see Hopkins as that different to Hollywood, but goodbye.
Yeah. Fair enough. Let's see.
There's no point in going another QB. There's no point in going Daniels. We wouldn't draft Bills on.
Yeah, I would probably just do. I'd probably just do like B-Rob for sure with one of these. I think.
Yeah.
And then I'd probably just do like Ertz and Aguilar.
Oh right, Aguilar.
Or Tylan Wallace.
Tell me he's been picked. Does Tylan Wallace get on the field? Is that something I've missed?
Well, he's gonna get on the field for 2 games. Well, Zay Flowers doesn't play.
That's fair.
Yeah. Aguilar. I definitely prefer Aguilar to.
Yeah.
We can do Aguilar and Ertz. Neither of these guys ever get drafted. Aguilar gets drafted exclusively by me.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, what we actually should have picked there is Sam Darnold. I didn't realize he was like. Oh, normally I never take a second quarterback with Lamar because it's just so like once you pick Lamar, you're just betting on him being the highest scoring guy. But for the opportunity cost of Nelson Aguilar, I probably would have gone Sam Darnold. I didn't realize he was on.
He may get to us. We could take him over Ertz.
Yeah, definitely take him over Ertz.
This far.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did not realize he hadn't even. Oh, never mind, he went. But that's fine. We can just stick with Ertz. So yeah, this team is going to end up as Lamar Jackson, Aaron Jones, Justice Hill, Brian Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, Isaiah Likely, Nelson Aguilar, and Zach Ertz. Yeah, not too bad there. I think we navigated a very chaotic lobby pretty well there. Like there was just a lot of kind of
random way too lucky on how
clean
the first 2 drafts went. That's not usually how these things go.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess while we wait for this to run out, were there any last questions in the chat that you would notice, Jacob, that you wanted to talk about? I know there was one. I apologize for forgetting who asked it, but it was essentially, here we go, freeze. Does your draft strategy, or did you talk about this one already? Sorry, does your draft strategy change for a 1v6 versus a 2 of 6? Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
No worries.
Anything else here?
Yeah, Jason, every single one of those guys are a yes for me. If there is a shitty player on a team that I'm playing to the Super Bowl, I'm drafting all of those dudes. Like that would be like, to me, is the number one edge. I do it less with the Chiefs because they're a bye team, and so I'm usually already have as many Chiefs as I want. But like, but if you're in a position where you can afford an extra Chief, like Noah Gray, we already drafted fucking P. Ryan. Justin Watson, I've taken before. I haven't taken Juju yet, but I'm not morally against it. I have definitely taken Dawson Knox, Mac Hollins. I mean, not very often because I so rarely take the Bills. But you want to do one more? Do you want to do an actual gauntlet to finish this out?
Let's do it. Let's do an actual gauntlet.
All right.
So while we load this up, I guess this is a perfect time because this was probably the biggest question I wanted to ask you, Jacob, when I first learned we were doing these streams, because I have not been drafting playoff best ball until about Monday or Tuesday of last week. So the gauntlet has been running for
we only get the turns
now. Yeah, that's, we'll do our best with it. The gauntlet's been running for close to a month now, I think. So I imagine that the ADP has shifted a lot in that time as the playoff odds have changed. Are there any teams in the gauntlet that you that have poor closing line value, where if we were to draft them now, we would just be making worse versions of teams that others have previously drafted. Is there, or do you have, and with that consideration, is there anything that changes for you?
So like the only two teams really that I think there's like been a massive gap would be coming upwards would be the Bucks and the Rams. And then going down would be the Texans and the Packers. I don't think that it matters that much because all of those teams are like not really teams you're seriously playing to the Super Bowl. Yeah, let's do Allen because we just did a Lamar.
Yeah, let's just do an Allen team to do something different.
Do something different. So I don't think that it matters that much because ultimately, like the only way that the closing line value, right? Closing line value makes zero difference in round one because you're against people in your lobby. So it could matter a little bit in round 2 and round 3, but like the biggest extent that it matters is in the Super Bowl. Were there configurations of this Super Bowl matchup that you're drafting that were meaningfully different than what you're getting now? So if you think about this last year, like the Bills were a team that obviously didn't make the Super Bowl, but by the time that we were at this point last year, a lot of people considered the Bills to be one of the Super Bowl favorites. And when the gauntlet first launched, the Bills were like 50-50 to even make the playoffs. And so people were getting all of the Bills, and they were getting them with like one of the NFC favorites, like the 49ers in the first few rounds, and then layering all the Bills on top. So this time last year, I would have said like Bills and 49ers is a dead combination. If you want to pick the Bills, you have to pick a way worse team than the 49ers and hope that that's the matchup. That's not really the case this year for me because all of the favorites have been more static. So like I wouldn't, and like if you're going to play a Bucks or Rams Super Bowl, that's kind of rare enough anyways that teams are going super deep on the Bucks and the Rams that I wouldn't really worry about other teams having better combinations of them all that much. So, yeah, I would say not a major concern. If anything, it just makes guys like David Montgomery and Zay Flowers slightly better picks because you're getting positive closing line value on those guys.
Makes sense. For your preferred teams to sack with the Bills, I think mine is probably the Lions if you can get like a Jameson Williams with James Cook. I guess you hope Laporta falls to you again too. So it's maybe a little awkward, but do you have a different take on favorite NFC team to pair with the Bills?
Well, James Cook didn't make it, so that changes things.
Oh, well, now you might get him on Raw.
Which is, so yeah, I think we can, let's do the Lions thing because if we take another Aaron Jones team, the chat's going to revolt.
Amon-Ra's gone.
Amon-Ra goes. So we can't really do Eagles. So basically the options would either be we can take Jameson and Laporta and then play for Montgomery and the late Bills backs. Or like or you do the Aaron Jones thing again. So just for the sake of variation, why don't we do Jameson and Laporta here? Yeah,
sounds good to me.
The chat is not as excited about all of my Aaron Jones teams as I am. They're not in on the Vikings. They're the chat's not.
I mean, I feel like we were all very in on the Vikings 48 hours ago.
Like that. So here's why I'm still in the Vikings. I watched Nosferatu last night. I didn't watch a single second of the game. I didn't watch any football yesterday, actually, at all. I had a brunch date, and then what did I do? Oh, I did some work. Watched a bit of Celtics Thunder, and then I went out for dinner with a friend, and then we watched Nosferatu, and then I checked the score, and I went, "Wow, Jahmyr Gibbs scored a lot of touchdowns." And I can't say that my priors changed that much. I guess Cam Akers like averaged 10 yards a carry on 6 carries, so people think he's coming for the job.
I think Jones was.
I don't think that Cam Akers.
Yeah. I think he's potentially still a little bit banged up. Is maybe the worry. Sure. But I can't imagine every season of Aaron Jones's career, his team has just said, "Okay, it's the playoffs. We're gonna unleash like bell cow Aaron Jones.
Right.
We may as
And
well."
Jones still had like 6 targets yesterday. I also just think, again, like, it's the kind of thing that's like, I think you're just like losing the forest through the trees. Like, to me, like, if what you saw yesterday, like, if someone gets me yesterday and I'm like, look, I watched the game yesterday and I think the Vikings look like shit and I don't buy them. I think they're frauds. It's like, I wouldn't put that much weight on one game, but that's like at least a take that is totally reasonable to me. But like digging into like, it just matters not at all if Aaron Jones has a 75% opportunity share or a 62% opportunity share. Like, at the end of the day, if the Vikings get to the Super Bowl, Aaron Jones is very likely to outscore Cam Akers. I've also drafted Cam Akers in this tournament. So like, I'm not like, I will draft the shit, guys, but like, I just draft a lot of the Vikings. And maybe that will turn out to be wrong. It seems pretty likely that'll turn out to be wrong. But like, if I just go through my exposures, like I'm staking a flag on teams that I like. My most drafted player is Aaron Jones, followed by Isaiah Likely, followed by TJ Hawkinson, followed by Justice Hill, followed by Jordan Addison, Derrick Henry, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, Justin Jefferson. That's 9 players from the Ravens and Vikings before I get to a player on another team. So like, I'm just betting on those teams, and I have no idea if those teams are going to be right. But like, whatever teams you're betting on, I wouldn't worry that much about like the player. If you love the Eagles, I wouldn't be like, but I don't like Dallas Goedert. Like, I would just be in on the Eagles at that point.
Yeah. So we could still add the Vikings to this if we wanted. It looks like the lobby is allowing that.
But yeah, the lobby's not saying shit. I would be pretty excited about that now. If we could get Jones and Addison.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I was getting ready to like add the Bucks or the Chargers or whatever, but like, why would we not just add the Vikings around after ADP?
Yeah,
let's do it.
The funny thing is, like, because they have to play on the road, they're like barely a favorite in round 1. So yeah, it's very possible that like my entire playoff basketball season effectively just ends on Monday night. But let's see.
Those are the risks we take, right? Like, it's not that different than on a DFS slate. Like, oh my God, my day is over at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. Like, that's no different than it being over and you losing at 4:30. Like,
that's when I log in on Tuesday and I start drafting the Gauntlet Returns.
Yes. Yeah. Underdog has you covered with the cope if you know all your teams are dead. That is true. They will continue to take your money. I'm
already eating it a little bit because I have a lot of Packers exposure. I've weaned myself off of the Packers since they dropped to the 7 seed. But notably, the other thing though is, like, as much as I think that the Eagles are a terrible draw for the Packers, I also think it's not very great for the. I also think it's not very great for the Eagles that they have to draw the Packers in round 1. Like, they're only a 4-point favorite in that game. That's a very sketchy game to me too. Brett Jones, just for you, we can maybe add a round 10 Cam Akers. David Montgomery goes. That
sucks.
So
we're probably going to end up adding Ty Johnson. Yeah. Do you have a preference between the two? I think my
preference is Ty Johnson.
Yeah, same. I'll cue him.
Because Ty Johnson can hit like I kind of like some of these satellite backs because a lot of them thrive in negative game script, and we just normally don't see them in negative game script in the regular season. But like if the Bills lose the Super Bowl, pretty good odds that we get a big Ty Johnson game. Did you have all the Bills just gone really early in this room?
Pretty much, yeah. Cooper, Shakir have gone. Oh, I forgot to queue up Keon.
All right, well, queue up my guy Matt Collins.
Probably, of course. Yeah.
Is it weird that I like this? This is one player take that I have. I absolutely refuse to click Dalton Kincaid ahead of Keon Coleman. Now we're probably just going to take.
Do I need to click Keon Kincaid just to keep that for you? You can click
we can double tap him for sure.
Yep.
But
we could click Hawkinson here. I don't think that's the craziest thing. Hawkinson over Kincaid. We only have 2 bills.
I think I want
Allen and Coleman.
I think I want the third bill.
Yeah, you're probably right. Let's be responsible.
Yeah.
As much as
that's one where I'm just like, I just think that's bad. I think that Keon Coleman is just like a better pick than Dalton. Like what? When is the last time Dalton Kincaid had a remotely impressive game?
2023 with Dawson Knox out, honestly, I think is the answer to that. Has he gone above like 12 DK at any point this year? I would not be surprised if he hasn't.
There's no tight end slot and there's no tight end premium. So they are just playing straight up. There's no benefit for taking the tight end in any capacity in this tournament. So you can have Dalton Kincaid, who he has do you want to know what the most yards he's had in a single game this year is?
I'm going to guess 54.
Incredibly close. It's 53.
Wow. Okay.
And he scored 2 touchdowns. So that means basically his ceiling is like 7.5 half PPR points without a touchdown. And then he has a 1 in 8 chance of getting a touchdown. So that's the Dalton Kincaid scenario. And then Keon Coleman, not great, but how many times do you think he has surpassed 53 yards? I guess not as many as I would have hoped, because he had like 51 twice, but he at least has a ceiling of 125, and he scored 4 touchdowns. So that's double. So I'm at least like him. Like I can close my eyes and be like, Keon Coleman, 50-yard touchdown.
He's the guy that walked into. We just got Ty Johnson sniped from us. What is happening in this lobby? Oh, I know what is happening in this lobby. Hollywood Andy is in the chat, and he's trolling us. Right. That's what's happening in this lobby.
All right.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, he has James Cook at least, but yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's do. So definitely the Mac Daddy for sure.
Yep. I feel like we almost have to click Ray Davis.
Yeah, we're doing the Mac Daddy and Ray Davis here.
I guess, yeah. And then unless the only other unless you want to no, we're not worried about round 1 in this. So yeah, Ray Davis. Yeah. I was gonna suggest Mixon just to pump the advance rate, but we only have.
I don't think that would have been a bad idea, but we only have 2 Lions. Yeah. I know the chat is very worried about our round 1 wide receivers. The one thing you have to factor into this too is unironically, Cam Akers actually now fits this team.
Yes, he does.
so the with these things, you're gonna have teams that are drafting 3-4 Lions and Chiefs. So it's not like we're over 50% chance to advance this team through round 1 or whatever. But I would say generally speaking, people are far too concerned, as with I think regular best ball, with advancing out of the easiest round to advance from relative to actually trying to win the tournament. Obviously advancing on round 1 is important. Like we've talked about, you want to make sure it's mathematically possible, but we're going to have 8 live players in round 1. I think that's a pretty reasonable way to advance. It's also only out of 6, right? If Josh Allen has 35 points, he can kind of get us there almost solo. If Joe Mixon comes all the way back around, I would probably prefer him to Cam Akers, but
clearly the best advance rate piece here
is could take Brian Robinson. Robinson versus Akers would be, I think, a pretty even call on advance rate versus Super Bowl scenarios.
Yeah.
But
I guess you get the one additional running back in there.
But Mixon's a good fit, because if they're pretty live to win round 1, and if they somehow do, they won't win round 2. But in theory, they wouldn't play the Bills probably. So,
yep, yeah, they would most likely play the Chiefs. Yeah,
they would need the Steelers to win. So, all right, let's.
So yeah, we can click Mixon. Yeah.
All right.
You've convinced me, Jacob. All right, so we got to finish this off: Josh Allen, Aaron Jones, Ray Davis, Joe Mixon, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Jordan Addison, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, and Mac Hollins. I don't mind that team. I think that's a decent enough team. These Josh Allen teams are always just weird because
I really wish we had gotten Montgomery, because our path now to a Lions Bills Super Bowl is pretty thin. But I don't think that there's a place that we could have really taken Montgomery. We weren't going to take him at pick 13. So we were playing to get him 10 picks ahead of his ADP, and he went more than that. So that's tough. But yeah, at this point we're pretty reliant on a Bills Vikings Super Bowl. I guess at least with the Lions, there are paths where if they don't play a shootout, like if there are some massive shootouts round 1, maybe the Lions just have such bad advance rates that you can be live with a Josh Allen, Ray Davis, whatever team, or Jared Goff is just like outscored by Josh Allen to such a high degree that half the Lions teams are drawing completely dead. You needed to have Josh Allen. So there's always possibilities there.
For sure. Hollywood Andy was in chat, was asking us to rate his team. So if you don't mind, before we get out of here, I think we can do that really quick. So he's got Jalen Hurts, took James Cook from us, which was rude. Devontae Smith. That's pretty standard, I think, how you would build.
Yeah, I think that's the correct. Yeah, it's just totally the correct pick to go James Cook there.
Yep.
Yeah. And then
we got Amari Cooper, Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, I don't like Cooper, but that's fine. Obviously, if you're doing a Bills thing, and then Goddard. I mean, that just seems like a pretty good team to me.
Yeah.
And then
he
goes
Chargers
off
in.
add supplemental Chargers. So that gives him a second Super Bowl combo. Yeah, that seems like a really good team.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a fan of it. Well-built team. All right. Well, I guess before we get out of here, thanks so much for coming on and joining me, Jacob. Is there anything you wanted to shout out? Where can people find your work? Where do you want to direct people to?
Yeah, I have tons of stuff on Playoff Best Ball, on Thinking About Thinking. And then I'm hopeful to get something up. I don't know exactly when, because I'm going to be in court a little bit this week. But at some point this week, I'm hopeful to get one more final piece up on Playoff Best Ball. And fingers crossed, potentially a post up on the FFPC Playoff Challenge that they run as well, which is another one of my favorite contests. And then regardless of that, we'll be back on Thursday. I believe that Daniel Raz, who's done Playoff Best Ball work for Leg Up in the past, is going to be joining us to draft some teams. We can get his thoughts on things. And yeah, excited to run it back again with you on Thursday. This was fun.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. And yeah, this was a ton of fun. So yeah, we will be back right here on this Thursday night. I think at 9 Eastern time again. I will send out a tweet, send out pings in Discord on all of that as well. But yeah, see you guys back here at 9 o'clock on Thursday. And thanks again for hanging out with us. Yeah, have a great night and good luck, guys.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.